Hey there, welcome to your weekly astrology forecast for July 29th. This week is about having a fresh perspective. So we have a new moon in Leo this week, and we also have some transits that involve changing things up or just having a fresh view on your life. So, as always, I'm excited to share the astrology of this week with you. My name is Shauna. I'm an astrologer, coach, and counselor. As always, I will have 3 tips for you to make the most out of this week. So before we dig into the transits, I will give you a lunar report. So basically a rundown of the moon, the phase that it's in, and the signs so that you can get an emotional tone for the week and plan or just have in mind the activities that are most useful with using the lunar cycles for this week in particular. So the beginning of the week, Monday and Tuesday, we're in the dark of the moon, and then we have our new moon on Wednesday, and then the moon will be waxing later in the week. So what this means is Monday and Tuesday, the moon is in the sign of Cancer, and it's in the dark of the moon, which means it's that point before the new moon. And this is a time when it's really beneficial to do any kind of inward reflection kind of work. It's also very helpful to do any rituals or ceremonies or even just routines that involve cleansing, letting go of things, clearing things out. If there is anything that you want to clean or you want to get rid of some stuff, like donate things, it's a good time for that. I would also say, though, it's definitely beneficial to get downtime. This is a time that's more about rest and there is this vibe of clearing things out, but it's also about making space and settling in so that when the new moon is here, then you can really tap into yourself in a way that is free and clear of clutter, both physical clutter and then inward clutter as well. So that's Monday and Tuesday. And then Wednesday, we have our new moon, which I'll speak more about in a moment, but that's happening Wednesday at 8:12 p.m. Pacific time. So Wednesday and Thursday, the moon is in the sign of Leo. Leo is about playfulness, and it's also about leadership. It's about prominence. It's about even creativity. So there's a very kind of playful, enthusiastic, and almost like a performance kind of vibe to Leo. That being said, the new moon is a time that's more about tapping into yourself, how it is that you feel, what it is that you want to bring into the world in the month ahead, and anytime really. But it's definitely this vibe that's more around being quiet with yourself. So this may manifest in a variety of different ways. You may choose to do things that are more fun and exciting to you, but that are kind of more low-key, sort of blending in the playfulness and the reflectiveness. So that's Wednesday and Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday, the moon is in the sign of Virgo. So the moon is moving into just barely the crescent phase. So Friday and Saturday, I would say, are good planning times because Virgo is it's an earth sign, practical, and it's also a mutable sign, which is about changing things, and it's has more activity to it. Virgo is known for being really good with processes and putting things in order, pulling things apart and then putting them back together. And so this to me just generally says anything around planning, logistics. It is the beginning of the waning cycle of the moon, so it does feel more like we're emerging out from the inward process. So that's why I'm thinking more planning than actually going out and doing things. So that's Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday, the moon will be in Libra, and the moon will be making a harmonious aspect compared to the new moon. So Libra is an air sign. It's sextile to Leo, and that just means that it is connected with this new moon energy. So Libra is, of course, about our relationships, the other, being in relationship to other people. It's also about beauty and love, harmony, aesthetics, the arts. So anything around any of those topics is going to be more fulfilling for you on Sunday. So great time to get together with people or to do anything involving the arts in general. And again, it's making an aspect to Leo, which is also helpful versus Friday and Saturday when the moon is in Virgo. It's the sign right after, so it's not making a traditional aspect. So I would say Friday and Saturday is more like low-key time. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know if that's helpful for you or not. That is a more detailed lunar report than I normally do. So let's jump in to the aspects of this week. First things first, we have the Sun square Uranus on Monday. Venus will also square Uranus on Friday. So let's pull them apart just for a moment. This will be happening at 7 degrees. So 7 degrees Leo for the Sun and Venus, and then 7 degrees of Taurus for Uranus. So Sun is a symbol of conscious identity. It's about ego. It's about awareness. Sun is interesting because it's linked to things that don't seem like they would go together. It's linked to the spirit, but the personal spirit, like the soul. So what it is that is spiritual inside of you, but that is personal to you. So versus like the collective soul, it is more about like that thing inside of you that animates you, that makes you you, that is your spirit, your soul. And we could even say like your higher self. All of those things are associated with Sun. It's also associated with conscious identity, the ego, the I am. And we all need a healthy ego. It's like the healthy ego, the healthy part of you that differentiates you from someone else. And so whenever the Sun comes into aspect with another planet, this sense of ego, of awareness of like, this is who I am, this is the role that I play in my life now, that comes up into question, and it can kind of like take on different flavors or different things associated with the planet that's aspecting to the Sun can come up. In this case, it is the planet Uranus. And so Uranus is about radical change, reinvention. It's about taking a system and totally changing it and making it different. Uranus can symbolize totally unexpected things popping up out of nowhere. It is a call to change it up, basically. So when the Sun and Uranus are in aspect together, I find that this shows when there is a drive towards freedom, towards independence, towards, it can be like wanting a sense of freedom for yourself. It can also simply be where you feel like there's something about you, about your personality that is in need of an update, where maybe a part of who you are or how you present yourself in the world feels like it's ready to change. Maybe it's been moving towards a change and now you're ready, or maybe it's just beginning and you're not really sure what that change needs to be, but you just feel like a change. So those kinds of feelings can come up. The other piece of this is first, actually, before I talk about Venus, the Sun is in Leo right now. So this aspect is happening at 7 degrees of Leo for the Sun. And so the Sun is strong here in the sign of Leo because the Sun rules Leo. And this is important because it tells us how the Sun is going to respond when it makes this aspect. So I actually really like this because the Sun is in a position to express its qualities in a most authentic way. And so that to me says that whatever it is that's like sparked inside of you this week around these themes of expressing yourself, changing your identity, radically changing your identity, or just like becoming aware of something new, that all can come from a most authentic place. So I would really pay attention to things that like surprises that come up. And I think that whenever Uranus is involved in an aspect, if you feel uncomfortable with change, then the aspect may feel a bit uncomfortable. So that's not bad, because, some people are more comfortable with change than others based on their temperament. But I just want you to notice like what the feelings are that come up and what you feel called towards. Okay, the other piece of this is that Venus will square Uranus as well. So Venus will also be at this point 7 degrees of Leo. And the other part about that, so Venus is relationships, beauty, aesthetics, love, money, sexuality, all of these things, all of like the like super delicious, enjoyable, alluring things in life are shown by Venus. Venus can also symbolize women or just feminine entities or feminine energy as well. So Venus in the sign of Leo is not Venus is not particularly strong at this point. It is a masculine sign, so it kind of like masculinizes that feminine energy. And it also means, because Venus is in the sign of Leo, that Venus looks to the sun to express itself, because Leo is ruled by the sun. So it's kind of interesting. We have Venus looking to the sun, and then the sun is already involved in this equation. So Venus-Uranus in itself symbolizes a call for freedom and independence and even creativity in relationships. I find that Venus square Uranus as an aspect in the birth chart can show where a person is very creative and kind of eclectic and really interested in new ideas and new kinds of like art, and because Venus is related to art, or just having social relationships with people that are kind of quirky or into interesting things, or into because Uranus is interesting things. Uranus is also associated with astrology and divination and other kinds of practices like that. So all of this to say, this could also show up in how it is that you relate to others. But I think the emphasis here is going to be more on that sun, more on the personality, how it is that you identify yourself as far as your role in the world, and how free you feel to change or to keep things the way that they are. And if there's a different part of you that wants to come up, that may involve like kind of an adjustment in how you show up in your relationships as well. And I think that we can always say that to a certain extent. When you change, your relationships are going to change. But here it feels like the start point is more about you changing first, and like getting really clear and connecting with that first. So that's that. The next thing that I'll share with you that's happening this week is we do have our new moon in the sign of Leo. So a lot of Leo vibe going on this week. So this new moon is tied into the sun and Venus square Uranus, because the new moon is happening at 9 degrees of Leo. So I would still, even though it's a few degrees away from a square to Uranus, I would still count this as being involved in Uranus kind of activities. So new moon is always this time of initiation of something new coming in, but it's also this time of connecting to yourself and what it is that you want to bring into the world. And these can be very mundane things like starting a new project or a new self-improvement program or a new project in your home or something like that. It can be very simple stuff like that. It can also just be where you're like feeling fresh, have more energy to move out into the world over the coming weeks. This being in the sign of Leo means a few different things. So Leo is that playful energy. Leo is about leadership. It's about prominence. It's about expressing yourself from the pure joy for just being who you are. So for this reason, Leo is associated with performance and with things like acting, but also more like where someone is sharing something that they very much believe in, and there's a lot of heart behind it. Those are all Leo themes. Leo's a fire sign, so passion, and it is a fixed sign, which is about determination and about building something over the long haul. Leo is ruled by the sun, and so whenever there's a new moon, this means that the sun and the moon are in the same sign together. So sun is in Leo, moon is in Leo, creates a new moon, right? So all of these together, there is some new passion that's coming about, and it involves maybe changing things up, which is the Uranus piece. The other piece of this new moon that's important is that in addition to Venus being there, which is relationships, beauty, femininity, it's also co-present with Mars. And so this has a few different significations. Number one, Mars is a malefic planet, which means that it has the potential to make things more challenging. Mars is not making an aspect. It's at, it's about 20 degrees of Leo. So it's not super close to the new moon, but it is present in the same sign. Mars is not particularly strong here. But it means that there could be possible agitations or irritations. Mars shows where you want to fight for something. And it shows where there is something that needs to be there needs to be a challenge or a fight, or there's just a lot of physical energy around the thing. And so what I would say to work with this is to notice if agitations are coming up, if there's any anger that comes up, or if it just feels like you need to move your body. That may be helpful as well. Again, it's a little bit farther away, so I don't know if it'll, you'll have to let me know how you're feeling. I don't think it'll be too much of an issue, but it is something that is there. And I think it's really interesting too, because we have sort of the new moon sandwiched between the masculine Mars and then the feminine Venus. So this to me also talks a little bit about relationships and balancing the yin and yang energies and the outward active, let's do something, and the receiving and holding and pulling in energy. There may be a little balancing that's going on for you this week. All right, last thing that I will share with you this week is that Mercury will station direct. So this happens Wednesday, same day as the new moon, and it happens at 25 degrees of Cancer. So there's a lot this week that's really tied into this new moon because Cancer is ruled by the moon. And so Mercury stationing direct, Mercury symbolizes thought, communication, intellectual processes. It also symbolizes things like people who do the work of communicating things or letters or contracts, anything where information is being transported in some way. Is a symbol of Mercury. So this is why when Mercury is retrograde, you will often hear that it's good to reflect on things versus actually signing contracts and things like this. So when Mercury stations direct, it appears to stop moving in the sky. And so we can we can take that as a symbol for our intellectual process this week, that there is a pause from reflecting. And then there's kind of like this pivot where it's like, okay, I feel a sense of completion with reflection, maybe that applies for you. And then there is a symbol of moving forward slowly. So Mercury will pick up speed over time, over the next few weeks, as it moves forward over the place in the zodiac where it has appeared to move backwards. So what does that mean for you? So that means that it is a time of starting to move forward on the things that you've been reflecting, or the things that maybe over the last few weeks that it's felt like you've needed to review or needed to kind of hang back on and hold back on. This is going to be more prominent in places where you have Cancer and Leo in your birth chart. So whichever houses those are in, that's going to be more of an active area around this. And also based on, if you have planets in those areas, if you're in a Mercury year, this is going to be more influential for you. So depending on what's going on in your life and, how much of an active presence Mercury has been, you may feel like things have been really paused. It may feel more like there hasn't been much of an influence at all. So that is that. All right, so I have 3 tips for you to really make the most out of this week. Tip number 1 is to try something new. And so I'm saying that because we have so much new energy this week. We have the new moon, we have Uranus involved with the sun and Venus, the self and relationships. And then we have Mercury stationing direct, like preparing to move forward with things. So Mercury direct with going into the waxing cycle of the moon. This is definitely a beneficial time to try something new. Tip number 2 is to play. Have fun this week. I think this is conducive to the Leo energy and also to Venus, Uranus, Sun, Uranus. I think that sometimes when when there's a Uranus transit in someone's birth chart, it can kind of feel like, oh my gosh, things are changing and it's scary. And when we look at it as like coming from being afraid of the change, it can totally change the experience versus when there's this more open and playful kind of attitude. So I want you to keep that this week because there's this vibe around you being supported to change things, and so you can have a little bit of fun with that. Tip number 3 is to focus on what you want. And this is important whenever we have a Uranus aspect as well, because sometimes when Uranus shows up, one of the main symbols is a desire for more freedom. And when you desire more freedom, sometimes I see it sometimes where people are like trying to get away from something that feels like it's restricting their freedom, especially if they're also having Saturn aspects as well. And so, if you're trying to get away from something, you're focused more on the thing and your energy is going there, and it's not really conducive to moving you forward into what it is that you want. So I would really refine your sense of focus here to focus on what it is that is exciting to you, what it is that you're interested in, what is it that you're curious about. Those are all really positive focal points. And, that's not to say that that you need to always be focused on those things all the time. I think that it can be very helpful to look at what's not working in your life and to get very clear on that, because that will inform what it is that you do want. Sometimes that contrast is helpful. If you've been following me for a little while, you know that I I really fucking hate when there is a fixation on positive thinking above all else, because I think that that can be very harmful actually when you don't allow yourself to have those like mad or angry or childish or nasty thoughts. I think when you repress those, that can actually make it worse. So it's not to say that you shouldn't focus on what's not working. I think, there's a time to do that. But I think this week, it's helpful to focus on where it is that you want to go, because that Uranus energy is going to like bring in surprises and unexpected things. And so when you're focused on what it is that you're attracted to, that can be helpful this week. So those are your 3 tips. And then I will pull some cards for you. And as I'm doing that, leave me a comment and let me know how this is resonating for you. And what your week looks like so far. So this week I will pull 3 cards. If there's something something specific that you want guidance on, you can hold that in your awareness. Or you can just clear your mind and focus on your body. And these can be seen as past, present, future. Or you can pick a number between 1 and 3 now. Oh, these are good. Okay, cool. So I'll say them one at a time and then I'll go into interpreting each card. So number 1 is the King of Pentacles. Strong card. I did pull this one reversed. 2 of Swords. Beautiful card. And the 6 of Pentacles. All right. So, okay. So first, I want to just kind of, let's just like look at the overview first of all 3 of these. If you were, if you had these, if you're like looking at this as a set. So we have 2 pentacle cards and then 1 sword card in the middle. Pentacles are about practical matters. It can be about money, but it is more like the tangible things like work and work, tasks, projects. It's more like what is it that you're doing in the world? So that's the beginning and the end. And then sandwiched in between those is the swords. Swords are about mind, thought processes, in this case, decisions. So the King of Pentacles, it can be a symbol of a literal male or masculine kind of presence or a yang kind of presence in your life. But kings at an internal level, they symbolize authority. Authority and determination and will. This card has connotations with Taurus energy because it literally shows several bulls in the card, the Rider-Waite version. And so this is about authority around work, authority around money and finances, authority around even work and things like that. It's like a very earthy kind of card, and like there's a certain amount of strength here. So I pulled this reversed, and so when things are reversed, that can mean either that you it would benefit you to embrace this energy, or it can mean that there's like a distortion of this energy. So either you're not doing this and it would benefit you to do it, or it can mean that you're doing this too much and maybe to like back off a little bit. So, you know, everyone's different, and you're going to know if that resonates with you or not. But definitely the vibe for this first card is around authority, and authority in places like in businessy places, things like that. So second card, Two of Swords. This card classically in the Rider-Waite system shows where someone is trying to make a decision and they're having a hard time making this decision, or they need to make a decision and they have not yet done so. I don't know, this came up in the present position as well. So maybe you have or are like immediately going to make a decision. So she is in the image, she's blindfolded. There is a crescent new moon in the image, and she's holding two swords across her body. And there's many different interpretations of this card. Some would say that she doesn't want to make a decision because she's blindfolded, or she doesn't have the information to make the decision. I think that there's like this holding energy too with the swords there. It's like holding two opposing views. The swords are moving in opposite directions. And behind her, the scenery is very calm. There's this calm ocean, there's an island, and she is sitting on a bench. So there's a lot of stillness around her. So this card, you know, again, classically, maybe there's a decision that you need to make. Maybe this could also be an encouragement saying, if you haven't already thought about it, you need to decide or to focus your energy. Or it could also be, you know, holding two opposing ideas until you find a third solution. Marianne Woodman and Carl Jung talk a lot about this concept of holding two opposites, or holding, like when you have conflict and it's difficult to make a decision, to hold those two options until a third emerges. All right. Card number 3 is the Six of Pentacles. So this card is about charity and balance of power even. It is a pentacle, so it's about more earthly matters. And in the image, there is a man holding a scale, and he is giving money to people who, it looks like they're people that are less fortunate than him. So I pulled this upright, and both this one and the Two of Swords I pulled upright. So this could be a sign to be more generous, to find a way to balance out where it is that you give and receive. There's lots of energy around that. So I'm curious what comes up with you there. And so if we're looking at all three of these together, I would say situations of authority, and even like maybe being like very rooted and stuck into one way of being. This reminds me of the Uranus energy that we're talking about. When you make a decision, or when you hold the opposites together, then maybe there can be a little bit of balance here that comes out. So I'm going to relate this to the Sun and Venus square Uranus, because sometimes it can feel like you need to make a decision, or you need to cut something off very quickly. And sometimes that is the best method of action. But I find that this comes up a lot when I do sessions with people, is that we want very much for things to be clean, and for if I'm not doing this, then I'm doing this, and it's very like clear cut. And you know, we want the answer. And sometimes the answer is not clear cut. Sometimes things take time. And sometimes we don't know the answer until we sit with it for a little bit. So one of the shadow sides of Uranus is wanting to cut things off or wanting to make that transition like now, and sometimes things need to percolate. So I would just watch, the changes that you're making. Is that coming from a place of anxiety and just like wanting to have that clean answer, or is that coming from a place of like yes and being moved towards something? What I want for you is to feel moved towards something, because when we come from a place of anxiety, it can like making a change from anxiety doesn't always quell the anxiety. So we want to come from that place of being moved. I hope that makes sense. All right, that feels like a good place to end. I am wishing you a wonderful week. If you want to follow me, you can stay connected to me on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube under Neo-Feminine Astrology. And I do offer astrology readings and coaching and counseling as well. So if you are interested in that, you can touch base with me there. If you are in San Diego, I will be co-hosting an astrology gathering on August 4th. Sunday, August 4th at 11 a.m. With another beautiful astrologer friend of mine. And we'll be actually doing a ritual and ceremony around the sun trine Jupiter and connecting with that transit. It's a very auspicious time. And so excited to do that and to be back to doing those gatherings again. I'll have links below to all of this, and the gathering, you can find us on Meetup. And that will be in San Diego. So wishing you a wonderful week. Talk to you soon. Namaste.